Thank you for joining us. Could you please tell us your name, your current position with the library, and what branch you work at?
My name is Rebekah Brate. I am the current Monroe branch manager with the MidPointe Library System.
Fantastic. How long have you been in this position?
Only a few months, so about September. End of September is when I started here.
And how long have you been with the library?
18 years this November, so 2007 in November.
That's quite a while.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off with can you tell us about your current position, the roles and responsibilities that you have?
Yeah. It's most like any of the other branch managers. I'm checking in with the staff day to day, making sure that there's not any holes or water leaks or anything crazy going on, but also making sure I'm checking in with the patrons that we have regularly and making sure the staff can do their day-to-day job. Talking with Ohio Living Mount Pleasant, checking in with them if there's things that need to be done on the property, and just trying to find ways that we can better the community.
That's a good point. Can you tell us a little bit about this branch? You mentioned Ohio Living.
Yeah. So this one's a little bit different. It's inside what used to be a house. So you can kind of tell from the outside. Once you get inside, it's a little bit different. In fact, when it opened, it had a cafe in it. So it looks a little bit different than it did then. We actually added some shelving post-COVID, but we partnered with Ohio Living. They help assist with grounds. So we see them like pretty much daily cleaning and keeping up leaves and taking care of the outside of the building. And then we do all the inside care, taking care of the inside of the building, shelves, what have you. But so yeah, we really enjoy it. We're glad that they were able to work with us.
So what is your day-to-day like?
Depends on what shift I work, but it's pretty much the same. We see a lot of the same patrons day to day, which is really nice, getting to know them and having like an actual name that they know you too, and are checking in on you and your loved ones just like you're checking in with them. And it's really nice to kind of have that relationship with them, I would say. Other than that, again, I'm helping with covering the desk when need be, getting them to help with any patron that might be needing help. Then I can also help with keeping the desk covered and things like that. It's quiet here. I would say it's a little bit different from some of the bigger branches, but yeah, it's pretty quiet, but nice and busy and easygoing. So I really like it.
What have you found most rewarding?
Let's see. Here, it's really been getting to create those new relationships. I have worked in this branch a little bit through the years, different ways, but it's a bunch of new people that I don't know very well, and I get to kind of meet them where they're at and see if I can help them and kind of get to know them like they know all the other staff here. That's so far. I'm pretty early on. I'm sure there'll be a lot of other things that I'm excited about this branch, but right now it's just getting to like meet all these new people and kind of get to know them.
Makes sense. What have you found most challenging?
I don't think I've found a challenge so far. Let's hope it stays that way. But right now, I say none challenging so far. So cross my fingers.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mentioned you've only been here for, like you said, 6 or so months. Is there an accomplishment or project that you're proud of or that you're working on maybe?
We are working with the school on a few different things, just trying to assist with the teachers and maybe kind of help bring students more access to material that they might need. It's just in its really early stages. We're trying a couple different things out. So there's not really much to say, but that's something that I'm hoping is useful and that it proves fruitful. So yeah.
Have you identified a bigger challenge moving forward? Like what challenges moving forward? Yeah.
I would say probably just maybe getting more youth in here, I think would be the biggest thing. Monroe is a really small knit community that have a lot of after school activities. So we're just one on a list of many things to do, but I want to be able to serve them just as well as we're serving all the other age groups. But I think it shouldn't be too challenging. It's just trying to find our little niche for them. So, yeah.
So you mentioned that you've been with the library for 18 years.
Yes.
How did you get your start with the library?
I cannot remember the exact reason. But I knew I was turning 16, and I've been talking to my parents about whether or not I wanted a part-time job. I was homeschooled at that time, so I had a little bit more freedom in my schedule day to day. And when we were talking about it, I think the library was the only thing that I was interested in even trying. At that time, fast food or working at a store had no kind of draw for me. But I remember as soon as I was able to get all the paperwork in order, the first thing I did was go to the library and apply. And I interviewed with Donna Vanderpool, who ended up being my supervisor at Middletown. And pretty much within a few months of my 16th birthday, I was working with us. So I remember I called like every week trying to see if I had gotten the job or not. I was so excited to work here.
What was your first job?
I initially, and for a few years, was, I would say, audiovisual. I was shelving, I was aiding. All I did was shelve and take carts and kind of organize them and get them ready. But at that time, we actually had our own special locations in Middletown. So I was in charge of just a specific section. So I did DVDs, and we had quite a bit of VHS at the time still. So I was doing that, that was interesting. I still remember being shocked that there were so many. And then kind of sort of off of that, CD-ROM computer games. We had quite a bit of them still. So those were the 3 areas that I was checking. And DVDs kept me busy because we didn't have streaming at the time. So I was very busy with the DVD shelving quite regularly.
What did you enjoy about the job?
I think I honestly just enjoyed being out of the house and really making new friends. I really enjoyed the people that I worked with at the beginning especially. They kind of just built in my mind what the library was like and what the people that I would work with would be like. So those were like the fondest memories I have really early on, was seeing them every day and them being all different and from different like walks of life, or they were of all different ages and had experience, but then we were all just enjoying each other's company, honestly. So I think at 16 it was just kind of fun in general. It didn't feel like a job, I guess, is really what it felt like. It's just fun.
So have you been with the library ever since then, or
Yes.
any gaps or anything?
No gaps. I did consider having to leave potentially, and that was a heartbreaking decision, but I kind of just realized that I wanted to stay with the library. It was when I was deciding whether or not when I was going to college. So I'd had 2 part-time jobs at that time because I was still part-time shelving. And I needed to decide which one I was going to have to give up so I could attend classes. And I kind of realized that what I want to do is work in a library the rest of my life, so shouldn't be giving it up. So I was like, I'm going to give up the other one so that I can end up being here my entire life. And I never wanted to ever have to think about leaving. I remember when I started, Donna Vanderpool was one of them, but there were a few people who had been in the library system for majority of their career, and they had been at it was Middletown Public Library at the time, but they had been with the system their entire career, if not the biggest chunk of it. And I remember just being like, I want to be like that. I want to be at MidPointe for like ever if possible.
So what was the transition from, when did you transition from shelver to maybe a full-time or a different position?
It was a different position. I remember it wasn't that I was getting bored of shelving. Shelving could constantly keep you busy, but I knew that I wanted to grow and I wanted to get some more experience. Right around the time that I started my undergrad was I was able to take a part-time desk position. But that was also doing some programming, which was really new for me. So leading up to that, I had been shelving more in the youth area. So I had been mainly like adult the rest of the library. And then I think somebody had left the young adult shelver position, which ended up becoming a youth position. So I snuck into that because I wanted to be in the youth department, and then being like, I'll take it. So I moved over there and then was shelving. So I kind of got to see how they did the programs got to know the librarians or the desk staff at the time and see how they did the programs and how they would do different things. And then I was actually allowed to shadow a few of them. I think it was on my own time at the time because I obviously was part-time, but it was really an eye-opening experience of like how they do it, like how they plan when they go out to, I went out to a couple different schools in the area where they were doing outreach story times and would help participate on the back end of programs. So I had kind of seen enough and put my hand in enough that when there was a desk position that opened, I felt comfortable to jump into it. So I took that position and was still part-time at the time, but was doing some programming and I think maybe it was like one program a quarter, like a big program that I was doing, and then assisting with smaller stuff around, but doing a lot of desk duties. I enjoyed it though. So.
And when did you transition to full time?
Actually, it wasn't until 2016. Oh. So at the time, I had to have my degree, my full college degree. So at that time, I was actually here. I was working I had a few more hours, but I was still part-time. And I was maybe 3 months out from finishing my degree. And they had a position open in the outreach department, which didn't have its name at the time, but is now Library on Wheels. There was a youth programming full-time position. So I knew I could do it. I was doing programming here at Monroe. I knew I had done programming at Middletown previously. And right around the time that I would be finishing my degree, it would be when the position would be starting. So I went ahead and applied for it and was really grateful to get it. So, yeah.
Well, since you brought it up, speaking of the former outreach, now Library on Wheels or LOW department, how long were you with that department?
From 2016, a few years, and enough to kind of see all the different changes that came around. The end of 2016, so really probably January 2017 after I had gotten my degree. I was with them until last year in September.
So yeah, tell us about your time with them. You started off as a sort of programmer, and then what else? Any other roles?
It was primarily just youth programming. It was full-time, and we also shared a few different responsibilities. At the time, it was just our supervisor, but then manager, and one other additional programmer who did adult programming, outreach, and then we obviously had our service that we'd had for quite some time, which was the homebound delivery service. So we had all of the lovely patrons that we had to shop for regularly, and we kind of split it up to kind of be able to all do it. So, our manager had his duties that he had to do day to day, but then he had a list of patrons that were his responsibility. Same thing with me and the adult programmer. So my day was kind of split between shopping for patrons regularly. At that time, we were doing weekly deliveries instead of just 1 week delivery. We had quite a bit prior to us moving to books by mail. So we were out on the road a lot and shopping quite a bit to get their crates ready and their collections ready. And then I would do the story times and other programming that I was doing in between.
So in 2018, Library on Wheels brought back its bookmobile services after roughly a 30-year hiatus. Yeah. Tell us about bringing the bookmobile back.
Yeah, it was actually already in the works pretty much when I had started. So obviously it takes a while to get the bookmobile, put it together, get all of the functions, designing it and creating it. So when I came on, a lot of that was already done and it was just in the works. So we were getting to see like blueprints and photos of it as it was like being built. And then I remember the day that it came to the Middletown branch when it was dropped off. It was like early morning, like the sun was still rising kind of like it is now, and we were all outside. And it was so cold, but we were still outside standing there waiting for it to pull up. We were so like just ecstatic to see it, especially because it had been like a year and a half. But then like everybody's coming out of the building, like wanting to like walk around through it, and so it was really exciting. It was just something new. I had never actually got to experience a bookmobile, so it was definitely new for me. I had heard of them and seen them, obviously, and I knew that we had one in our system years prior, but I think it was just a new, exciting experience to look forward to, and it was just kind of cool when the moment it pulled in, being like, okay, this is ours, all right, and they're like, all right, now that you got to drive it. I was, oh, okay. So it was new all the way around, and honestly, I think not just the people that we're going to be working with it daily, I think the rest of the staff in the system were excited about it. And I think that just kind of made even the public and community excited about it.
So you brought up, what is it like driving the bookmobile?
It is fun. I will say it was probably the biggest vehicle I'd ever driven at that time. I used to think my dad's truck when I was learning to drive was big, but that definitely was bigger. It was very long too, so it was interesting to be in a vehicle where you're taking wider turns, but it wasn't too difficult. The first, I would say, maybe half a year, you were very aware that you were in a large vehicle with books and you were driving on the road with everybody else. But after a while, it kind of just became second nature. I felt pretty comfortable doing it. It was a little nerve-wracking at first, but we had some training. We had a gentleman that kind of walked us through just simple things to remember with a bigger vehicle, and just practice made it really fun. So yeah.
And do you remember how big the bookmobile is roughly?
30 feet roughly. I can't remember exactly how long or how tall I should say, but they're 30 feet was what we had. Obviously that's the entire vehicle, but most of that was books. So yeah.
What do you remember about the ribbon cutting / grand opening for the bookmobile?
I remember it was at Fort Liberty Playland, actually, I think. So we were in a Liberty parking lot for the playground there. And it was actually one of our regular stops, which is part of the reason we had picked it. And we had been like soft having stops and going to different places when we first got it. And then Fort Liberty Playland had been one of the busier stops for us. But I remember it was very windy that day. I remember it was very windy, but it was exciting. I had been a part of the ribbon cutting here at Monroe when we got our new building. So it was interesting to see the differences between it being like a physical branch opening and a vehicle opening. But it was really nice to see all the people that had come out from just within the system. We had people that were just friends or colleagues of people in our system that came to see it and cheer us on, as well as people from Liberty Township and other parts of the community. The board was there. It was really nice to just see everybody all excited for the bookmobile at once. So it was really nice.
Did you perform any special roles that day?
I think the only thing we did that day that I remember was we were just giving tours. There were a lot of people that had stumbled upon us and didn't know we were having a ribbon cutting. So there was a couple of different families that came on and got to check out and use the bookmobile that were kind of just pulling in to use the playground and realized we were there. So it was really fun to kind of have that like first experience with people who had never seen the bookmobile, especially their little kids who were like, what is this? This is like totally new for me. So mainly a glorified tour guide, probably. It wasn't a big area to tour, but it was nice to introduce the public to it.
Anything about Shakespeare?
Shakespeare was there. I think I was just around him that day. Yeah. No, I did not participate as Shakespeare that day. They wanted me to be seen that day. I think I would have probably preferred it. It was so windy that I probably would have been nice and comfy. I mainly got to see Shakespeare or be Shakespeare a lot in years past when I was in the children's department in Middletown. Oh. But yeah, he was there that day. Just not, I was not Shakespeare that day.
I'm going to jump back real quick. Yeah. You mentioned, I didn't know this, that you were at the ribbon cutting for the Monroe branch.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
I felt like that was really new. That was my first ribbon cutting, and there was a lot of people from what I remember. I remember we were all standing like in the grass right across from it, and we had the ribbon cutting, and then this is probably I would say the fullest this building had been was that day. At one time, honestly, there was so many people. There were people that were checking out, that were just kind of walking in to see, that were talking with our administration and with us. I actually believe a couple different people from Monroe had come in. That it was funny. They had recognized me from my last name. They didn't know me, but they knew my last name, and they were like, "Are you so-and-so's daughter?" And I was like, "Yeah. How'd you do it?" They're like, "You look like them." So it was just really kind of fun in that way. And I remember I sat at the desk most of it and was just helping patrons check in, out, answering questions. It felt like it lasted hours. I don't think it actually lasted hours, but I felt like it was the majority of my day had been the ribbon cutting. So it was really fun as well.
When did you transition to the manager of the Library on Wheels department?
Well, 2019. I think it was spring. I can't remember exactly, but it was in the spring. I want to say May is what comes to mind. But I took over as interim manager at the time. Our previous manager had moved on to a different library system, and just kind of took over the day-to-day duties. It was my first time, I'd say, supervising anything. There's a lot of moving parts. I knew the system decently well, I felt like, and I knew the branch decently well from having been in it with all the different updates and changes. So it was easy to kind of keep track of that. And then I was getting to learn some of the more like supervisory duties that I wasn't used to. And so I took over as interim for most of 2019. And then I think pretty much January or February 2020 became manager. And that I was manager until last year. So
could you tell us about those roles and responsibilities and all the things the bookmobile was doing that you were responsible for?
Yeah. It was a little bit different 2019, 2020. So I had a little bit of a very interesting first couple of years getting supervisory experience. 2019 kind of just went as it normally had been prior to that. We had the bookmobile for about a year and a half-ish, 2 years at that point. And we were primarily seeing schools, especially during the school year. We were there for most of their school days, almost every day of the week at that time. And we were checking out the books to the classrooms, and then we would occasionally have some park stops or other stops in the afternoons or whenever it worked for our schedule. And then during the summer, I think that year we'd actually had, we were part of the prizes for summer reading. So we'd had a couple different kids that had actually chosen to have their grand prize be the bookmobile come to their house. So that was really fun. We had like a little party. We had a dance party with Bubbles. Me or another librarian had done a story time, and they had cupcakes. So it was a little party for them. They'd invited their friends or their neighborhood over. So that was kind of fun. Then we kind of started back into the next school year at the end of 2019. And then 2020, obviously we thought was going to be going that same way. But then it obviously changed a little bit. So from I kind of just ignore 2020 when it comes to what the bookmobile normally did. But about around 2021, we started getting more of what we had been doing again, in a different way, in a different capacity, but we started going back to it. But a lot of it was the normal, most branches, when they're opening their branches, they have their set list of things that they have to do. For us, our physical branch is actually the vehicles. The bookmobile was the biggest of those and had the most, I would say, moving parts to kind of deal with to get it on the road and to even just get it back in the building. We had to do, and we still do, have to do regular checks. We have to do a lot of point checks on it, make sure the tires are good, the oil's good, that there's nothing that's wrong with the vehicles. We're not exactly mechanics, but we had to kind of get a little bit familiar with the vehicle itself and check and make sure everything was there, make sure our shelves were full, kind of get ready for the school stop, make sure we had everything, and then day-to-day was the same. And then usually you're stocking when you get back. You're trying to take care of the vehicle, take care of any things that had come up while you're on the vehicle. You're kind of limited to what you can physically do when you're there. So you have your office time to get all that stuff together and organized. But the bookmobile wasn't the only thing too. So we still were doing homebound. We had kind of curved off to more books by mail. That was the easiest way to serve the public during COVID. We couldn't physically visit them, and we couldn't obviously go in and sit with them like we had been. And it just became the easiest way for us to continue to serve them during that time. So we moved most of our patrons to books by mail, and we were getting like backs weekly, like daily almost. And so we were doing all of those, quarantine processes on top of it during that time. And then we also brought in the lobby van, which had been newer to our service, right the last few years that I had been there. And so that added a new vehicle, a new set of services, and different types of things that we were doing. But a lot of it's just a few hour or so preparing to be on the road and then being gone a good portion of your day, and then coming back and trying to fill out that schedule with more things to do, or trying to prepare for what you're going to do the next day. So, yeah.
Sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
What did you find most rewarding about your time with the Library and Wheels department?
It seems kind of like typical, but I really enjoyed the way that the kids got excited about us. I loved going to events, and I loved going to, whether it was like we were at fall festivals or spring fests or other things, and hearing, if not seeing, the kids like dragging their parents over because they were like, this is the bookmobile that comes to our school. Or if they were used to me or another person on the bookmobile when they would visit the school, they'd peek their head in and they go, it's not my lady, but it's another lady. But it was just really fun. They were so excited about it. They loved seeing it. And even if they didn't check anything out, they wanted to visit and say hi to us, and they wanted to like make it known that they know us, they've seen us. There were a lot of times where they would come on and they go, I know you. And I'd be like, I know you too. Yeah. So it was really nice. Seeing their excitement for it was just really fun, especially because I didn't have that memory of a bookmobile as a kid. So I kind of felt like it was a good memory that I was getting to be a part of with them, is that they might not remember me years later, but they'll remember the librarian on the bookmobile. So that was one of my favorite memories. But I also did really enjoy a lot of the homebound residents and patrons that we had. That was also really nice. They sometimes would just tell you funny stories that just came to their minds, or you just felt like you were making their day by seeing them. The same way that you were making the day for the kids, but you could just tell it was like a different kind of day made for them when they would see us. So those were really rewarding to have.
What did you find most challenging?
Making sure that we were seeing everybody and fulfilling, like, we have a big community that, MidPointe Library System services, and we only have one bookmobile and then one lobby van. So you can't really be everywhere at once. So making sure that when you are going somewhere, that it was going to be the best use of the time, and that it was going to be the widest impact. That was the most challenging, at least for me, was knowing that we were seeing the right exact place at the right time to service everybody. It was hard for me to determine.
Is there an accomplishment or project that you're particularly proud of during your time with the bookmobile?
Yeah, a lot of them were, but I would say bringing in the lobby van with the grant that my supervisor, Braille Manor, who is the public service director, that was my first time working on a grant. She had done a few before, so she obviously knew what she was doing a little bit more than I did. In theory, I knew what grants were, but it was really fun to work on that with her, and just kind of learn about that process, but then also be chosen, and then all the things that came afterwards. Like, you did all this planning and picking of what you were going to have and why you were going to have it and how you were going to use it, and then you just kind of send it off and you don't know, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have to actually buy all these things and get them ready. And so it was kind of fun just to have that new experience of making the grant, but then also fulfilling it and bringing those services to. It was a new vehicle to be in charge of. It was a new type of service to kind of plan out. So it wasn't just adding a service that maybe we'd done something similar to. It was really having to think through every little thing that we could think of ahead of time, and then realized that we were probably going to have to change some of it once they got moving and rolling. But I was really proud of that, and I was proud to kind of work on her with that too and learn.
So you mentioned a few times that you have connections to the area.
Yeah.
So can you tell us where you grew up?
I was born in Dayton Hospital. That's where my mom worked at the time. But I was raised in Middletown in that sense that was where I was residing. But all of my family, my grandparents, my mom and my dad, my uncles, my aunts, all of them were born and raised pretty much mostly in Monroe. They went to Monroe High School. My grandpa on my dad's side and my grandpa on my mom's side, had memories of Lemon Township before it was what it is now. So I have a lot of knowledge, I would say, and memories just from them, bequeathing it to me. I think 2 years ago, I was at my grandfather. He was living in Florida at the time, but I had to have a really fun sit down with him, and he was bringing out his old yearbooks, and he was talking about how the road right across down the road a little bit, that was just a dirt road, and there wasn't any of all this stuff here. So it was just really fun to kind of picture it in that sense and just kind of see how big Monroe has grown too. But I went to it's now the primary school building, but it was the elementary school building right down the street from here. And I went there for my second and third grade year. I'm really bad with names, but I do remember my teachers from those years. I remember my second and third grade teacher, but I remember my second grade teacher. She had a really cool program where she taught a class at Miami University. And so she all made us pen pals with her students in that class. So we had a notebook that we would write a letter to, and then she would give it to a certain student in her class, and then they would write back to us. I remember that. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I still have that notebook and read it every so often and think of what second grade Bekah thought was really important to tell that girl. But we got to spend a day on campus with her, which was really, with all of them on campus. But that was really cool. I remember thinking that was just the most fun thing ever. I remember field days, which is so weird because I remember that as the elementary school building. So when I was there on the bookmobile, because we took the bookmobile there, it was fun to kind of be sitting out there and going I remember running up and down these hills and being worn out and it being field day. So that was kind of fun. I didn't get to go to the school system here the entire time of my when I was in public schools, but I do remember those 2 years really, really well. And my great grandma and great grandpa actually live right down the street. So, or they did. Their house was on Britton Lane, so I drive past their house every day, twice a day. So the school bus was here, and I would spend the rest of the days with them. I actually like to spend during the summer. I would spend pretty much most of the weekends with my grandparents. So I had a lot of time here, which was so nice. So I feel like I know Monroe pretty well.
Okay, speaking of favorite restaurant, favorite place, just trying to any other.
Right. Okay.
Memories?
So I'm probably going to butcher it a little bit, but me and actually another staff member here love the Thai food place. Okay. Numprik, I think is how you say it. I really love their Thai food. I love, they have a Hawaiian pineapple rice that I love. I cannot get it very spicy though. I'm level 1. But I really like that, their Thai food. And I also really have started enjoying Low County bagels. They're really good. They have a lot of choices, and so anything I'm in the mood for, they've had. But I really like those 2 places right now. So we'll see. There's always new restaurants opening up. So,
as you mentioned, you've been with the system for 18 years.
Yes.
We kind of talked about your history here. What was the library system like when you started? What are some of the ways it's changed? You've mentioned a lot of these changes, but
let's see. I think one of the biggest changes that stood out when I was kind of thinking back to how long I've been here was the VHS and computer games. It's weird to think that like in these like almost 20 years that those were still around. It doesn't feel like they should be. We had like whole shelf rows of them. So that it was just weird to think that we still had that item. But then there's been other things like physical changes to the branches have been really cool to see. I wasn't a part of the transition, obviously, but I remember Trenton moving to their new building. So getting to see their growth was really nice. Monroe wasn't a thing. So getting to see Monroe have its own location and branch was also really nice. That's been a big change. So in the physical changes within the branches, like Middletown has like a bunch of new different things that we would have had that I wouldn't have even thought that we would have had, back in the day, like having the new makerspace innovation point at Middletown. Wouldn't have thought that at all. Like it was the genealogy room. It was always a genealogy room when I first started. And so it's just kind of cool to see how we've adapted and changed and kind of tried to broaden ourselves for the community and what those needs might be. Those are always new. When I was doing my master's in library science, I remember thinking about like learning about other libraries and what they were doing and how we really were changing, and then seeing those changes start happening in our library was really fun. But I'd say it's there's so many little things to count that have changed, but I think back all the time where it's just how we run this library system is different. I don't think we had branch managers, so I wouldn't have necessarily thought that this would have been I wouldn't have thought I would be in this position at all. That was not something I ever thought about, even when I was in my master's program. But yeah, I'm really grateful to be part of the library system and those changes. Even if I didn't have a hand in it, I got to see it and experience them. So there's a lot of little changes, but I'm really glad to have been able to view all of them, I say. Yeah.
You slightly touched on it. When you started, the library was called the Middletown Public Library.
Yes.
And then obviously now we're the MidPointe library system. Mm-hmm. Do you have any memories of like that transition? Is this something that's always fascinated me?
Let's see. I remember, honestly, I felt like it was pretty quick and easy. I probably didn't feel that way when we were doing it because there was a lot of getting rid of like anything that still had like Middletown Public Library, so there was no confusion. So a lot of it was, years later finding like a file, we're like, oh my God, we still have this. Like we have to get rid of this now, or we have to change this or update this. So it was a lot of going through and making sure that we were updating everything that had the old logo on it. And obviously we were talking to the patrons like regularly and trying to like help explain it to them. And you also have to change, instead of saying this is, hi, this is Rebekah from MidPointe or Middletown Public Library. On the phone, you have to go MidPointe Library System. You have to kind of correct yourself when you're doing that. Kind of like when you have to write a new year at the start of a new year. I remember being honestly really excited because I don't really remember much of a brand when we were in Middletown Public Library. So that was kind of fun to have like colors or a theme or obviously a mascot that we didn't have before was just really fun. So I enjoyed it. I feel like if I could put myself back in those shoes, there probably was so much more going on, but it was honestly really fun. Getting to see like all these little updated changes. And I remember when Shakespeare was named, us putting it out to like the community and like them giving in suggestions of what he was going to be named. I just remember all of that around us changing MidPointe was really exciting. And it was like a lot of work. So props to the people that were in charge of that, but it really was exciting, I would say. Yeah.
That's a cool experience. Thank you for that.
And it was cool because I got to be Shakespeare every so often. So I got to enjoy summer reading programs inside the Shakespeare costume. That was fun.
And we're going to wrap it up here. Do you have any other memories or projects about the library you'd like to share? You obviously shared a lot, so.
Let's see. I do remember, I kind of been thinking a lot about it with the new Yankee location at Liberty opening. But I remember I was still relatively newer to the system, was still working at Middletown, but we got to have a day where different pockets of people were carpooling to Westchester when the new branch was opening, and getting to like see it before it opened, or getting to just see it when it was brand new and done. And I remember the people that I carpooled with, and I remember I'd been working with them daily, but it was just like at 17, 18, however old I was, it was like fun to be in a carpool with these people that you work with daily, and you're just like joking, but then you get to this new building. I had never been to the Cox Road location either. So Westchester at where it's at is all I've ever known for the Westchester branch. And I remember just thinking it was huge and like so many windows and all those sorts of things, but it was really exciting. I really enjoyed that memory. And I kind of get excited thinking about that for the Yankee location, everybody getting excited again for this new building and seeing all of that. That comes to mind, but as of right now, I think like there's just so many probably I'll think of later, but it's hard to think I've had that many as well.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I'll probably think of things later, but yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.